sister as my caregiving partner to care for my mom. She lived in Pennsylvania, my sister lived in Washington State, and I lived in Michigan at the time, and we cared long distance for 5 years. So we know what this is about, and I know those problems and issues that you come up with. I'm also trained as a librarian, as Dan said, and I decided that if I know how to organize information, and if I cannot put together some information in an organized fashion for caregivers and share my experience, then no one else can. And so in 2008, I founded Parent Care 101 to get that information to caregivers. So let's take a look at those sobering statistics about falling. We know that falls are the second leading cause of injury and death in the United States. We also know that 2/3 of those who fall are going to fall again, and probably fairly quickly after that first fall. We also know that 1 out of every 3 persons over the age of 65 is going to sustain a fall injury each year. That's a lot of people. And 90% of those who do fall are aged 65 or older. So preventing falls is extremely important, not only for the physical damage that's caused, but also for the psychological damage. There's research that shows that once people fall, they become much more frightened of getting out of their homes or doing their regular activities, fearing another fall. So we want to prevent falls. This is very important. So here are those 6 risk factors for falling. And you'll see that number 6 is environmental hazards. That's kind of what we always think about is, wow, falling, that means like tripping and falling down the stairs or slipping. But in fact, there are 5 other factors and steps that we want to talk about today and make sure that we've covered all of those for either ourselves or our loved ones. Those factors are osteoporosis, medications, chronic illness, impaired vision, lack of physical activity, and those environmental hazards. So number 1, osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is a medical condition where the bones become very porous. They're less resistant to stress, and they're more prone to fractures. It's actually a decrease in bone density, which contributes to falls and resultant injuries. If osteoporosis is a factor in your life, then sometimes we don't know what comes first. Either you fall and a bone breaks because it is weakened and porous, or in terms of the leg bones, the bone may break first because it's weak, and then comes the fall. So what do we do to prevent falling from osteoporosis? We try to prevent the condition, and that is, number 1, get sufficient calcium in your diet. Foods like broccoli, milk, yogurt, cheese, those kinds of things can increase your dietary calcium. But for older men and women, there is a daily amount of calcium you should have, 1,500 milligrams for women and 1,200 for men. This is on a daily basis. And also you need to have sufficient vitamin D. There is an interaction between vitamin D and calcium that the vitamin D helps the calcium to be absorbed into the bones. So every day you want to get 400 to 600 international units daily. Normally you can get this by sunlight, but if your vitamin D levels are low and your doctor can perform a test for this, then you'll want to have supplements. And finally, you want to do weight-bearing exercises. This helps strengthen the bones. And there are a lot of ways to add weight. Doesn't mean you need to go to the gym. It means that you can get some big dictionaries and lift those up with your arms. Maybe put use some handheld weights. Put weights on your wrists or ankles just as you're walking. Use a light exercise band to do your regular exercises. Even just walking is a weight-bearing exercise. So those are some of the ways that you prevent osteoporosis. The second risk factor that we want to talk about is medications. And the first thing that comes to mind is always the side effects of medication. Dizziness, blurred vision, drowsiness, decreased alertness are all side effects. So we want to be very aware of every medication that you're taking or your loved one is taking. Check to see if one of these things is a side effect. Then be aware of combinations. If you are taking several prescription or over-the-counter medication at the same time, you want to make sure that there's no interaction between the two. So maybe you're taking one medication for blood pressure, but if you add another medication for diabetes, perhaps the combination will lead to dizziness, which the two drugs alone never did. So when you're going to add a new medication to the medications you're already taking, again, you want to be very conscious of the side effects of that new combination coming in. And be careful of those over-the-counter drugs, even herbal supplements. These all have side effects also, and in combination with prescription drugs, you can get a side effect you're not really prepared for. So what are some suggestions? Like I said, know the common side effects, read the labels, read the package insert that your pharmacist gives you. Then talk with your pharmacist or your physician to see what's the lowest effective dosage you should be taking. Maybe after a while you won't need as high a dose, and maybe the higher dose is giving you some dizziness. If you could go to a lower effective dose, that dizziness may go away. Regularly reassess if you need all the medication that you're taking. If you have a chronic illness and something like diabetes, and maybe you're taking a drug for that, perhaps after exercise and diet, it may be possible that you don't need some medications that you are taking. So always ask your physician at every time that you go, do you need all this medication? Also, if you know, or if the physician knows that this could cause dizziness, then find out, do you need a walking aid, maybe a cane or a walker, while you're taking this particular medication? It's better to walk around with a cane or walker than to fall and have that injury. For medications, you also want to check all the dates on your medications. When do they expire? And you want to remove all out-of-date or medication that's no longer used out of your medicine cabinet. Now, disposing of medications in this regard, we now know that flushing them down the toilet or dumping things down the sink is no longer recommended. So in that package that we're going to send you of the fall proofing checklist, there's going to be a website listed there from the FDA that will give you some instructions on how to dispose of your medications. And if you are on medications of any type, really limit your intake of alcohol, because that can increase the dizziness or the misbalance that you might have. Finally, have you stopped taking your medication? Stopping your medication or not taking the medication as directed can have unexpected effects. So take your medication as directed, and if you need to stop it, also stop it with the directions. Call your physician and make sure you know how to stop. The third risk factor that comes for falling is chronic illnesses. Things like high blood pressure, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, these kinds of things that can affect your balance, can affect muscle tone, can affect both the medications and the disease itself, can lead to problems of balance, low vision, or problems with dizziness. Difficulty controlling the bladder is also something that is important, because if you're having difficulty, then you may rush to the bathroom, and rushing to the bathroom on the way there, you could trip or slip or can't get there fast enough, and you may have a fall. So controlling your bladder is another chronic illness that you might want to get some help for, and that will also help prevent some falling. So make sure that if you have some kind of chronic condition or illness, that you think about and talk with your physician about how they may contribute to falling and how you might prevent it. The fourth factor that goes into preventing falling is thinking about impaired vision. We've talked about medications providing dizziness or may contribute to dizziness. Aging and illness, these all can also contribute to a changing or altered vision. And of course, if you can't see, you can trip. You can trip over rugs or wires or your pets. I know my dog used to get under my feet all the time. And impaired vision also leads to shaky balance. And I remember when I was taking Tai Chi as one of my exercises, and I've been taking it for about 2 years, so my balance is pretty good now. But one day in our class, all of the electricity went out and we shifted to candles, and then we tried to do our Tai Chi exercises by candlelight. We could still see, but it was very dim in the room, and all of a sudden none of us could balance very well, and it was very clear that impaired vision would actually give us bad balance, so that was not a good thing. So make sure that you can see. Have an annual or a biannual, every 2 years, vision checkup. And if you have prescribed glasses or lenses, wear them. Also, if you wear eyeglasses, make sure that you clean them often. Also, in the home, use color and contrast to make sure that you can see, especially grip bars or the railing going up the stairs. You want to make sure that's either a different color, a different texture, or something that you can see so that you'll be able to grab it if you need to. And you might want to add color strips to the first and last steps, or change the carpet color, something that will help you know, here's my first step and here's my last step on a staircase. And finally, turn on the lights. How many times have we walked into a darkened room and say, oh, I'm just going to go across and pick something up off the coffee table, and bam, we ran into a chair because we didn't see it. Turn on the lights when you walk into a room. The fifth risk factor that we want to talk about today is also lack of physical activity. Activity really helps muscle tone as well as bone strength. We've already talked about this in terms of osteoporosis. And physical activity really helps your balance. So get moving. Maintain some kind of regular exercise routine. And I find exercise is sometimes gets me in a mode that I don't want to do something because it's exercise. But I like the word activity. So regular activity, maybe 15 minutes every day of just walking, maybe 30 minutes 3 times a week. You pick what that regular routine is going to be and choose something you like. Maybe it is walking, maybe it's biking, maybe it's rollerblading if you have a lot of energy to you. But choose something that you really like and mix it up. I know that I get bored really easily, so one day I try to go swimming, and then another day I go biking, and then another day I walk. And as always, check with a doctor before you start an exercise routine if you've not been in regular activity. Also, you want to make sure that you can undertake your daily activities safely. So let's say that you're rising out of a chair or out of the bed. Make sure that you know how to do that safely in the physical condition that you currently have. And then take some time to make sure you've got your balance before moving off away from the bed or from the chair. If you're reaching high up, you may need to have one of those poles that has a grip handle on it that allows you to bring things down from top shelves, or get a really sturdy step stool with handles so that you can easily get to something that might be out of reach. And remember that always the advice about bending from the knees and not using your back to lift things. Just be a little bit more mindful of bending and reaching and how you're doing that. Do that safely. Physical activity also means catching your balance and making sure you've got good balance as you grow older. One of the ways that is very easy to improve your balance is while you're standing in line, stand on one foot. Just put your weight on one foot and lift up the other one. Just stand there, count a slow 15. Then shift to the other foot and count a slow 15 again. You can do that anywhere, grocery line, waiting for movie tickets, whatever. So that's one way to improve your balance. Another is walking slowly, heel to toe. So walk heel to toe, 10 steps in one direction, turn around, do it in the other direction, and do that a few times every day. There's a reason why police officers make you walk heel to toe when they're thinking about if you're alcohol impaired. That's because it's a really good way to show if you have balance or not. So practice that every day, and that will help your balance. And finally, I'm a real proponent of Tai Chi because this exercise, slow movement with smooth balance moves, this has now some scientific evidence that proves that only 6 weeks of Tai Chi done twice a week can improve your balance over 60% of what it was when you began. As I said, I've been taking Tai Chi for 2 years, 2 times a week, and I can already tell that every time I step down off a step or get onto a ladder, I have better balance than I did before. So consider that. The sixth environmental hazard, the sixth factor is environmental hazards. So this is the one we, as I said, we normally think of. Take a look inside the house first. You want to do that home trip check. Check for clutter on the floors, wires, extension cords that are in the way of the walkway or the pathway inside the house. If you've got scatter rugs, make sure that they do not slide. Make sure there's slide-resistant backing to them. And check for flooring that's uneven. I know that in my house particularly there's some hardwood floors in the hallway, and then the kitchen is linoleum, but then there's this little strip of wood, the molding on the bottom of the hardwood floor, and it is uneven there, and I have found myself tripping a bit over that. So I'm thinking now about how I'm going to get either put some color on that or do something to remind myself that it's there. Improve your lighting in the house, and we did talk about this in terms of vision, very important. And bathroom safety. Make sure that you're adding sturdy handrails in the tub and the shower and by the toilet. Make sure that you have slip-resistant flooring, and those rugs in the bathroom, oh, make sure that they have backing that's not going to slip either. And of course, a big safety thing that may or may not be falling, but electric cords near water, you do not want to do that. If the electric shock doesn't hurt you, the fall when you come down will definitely do some damage. You also want to make sure that you're looking for those hazards outside the house. Be very mindful when you're walking. Go outside and check for uneven walking surfaces in the walks and the driveway. Make sure they're in good repair. And then for those of us who live in a climate with snow and ice in the winters, make sure the porches and steps and walks are always cleared from snow and ice. Put on the proper shoes for inclement weather, and throw a bag of kitty litter in the trunk of the car or in the back seat somewhere that if you have to get out of the car on slippery pavement, you could sprinkle some of that kitty litter down and help your walking. Finally, something that we don't always think of is dressing for safety. One of the things to do is to make sure to wear low-heeled shoes with rubber soles. I see a lot of older people switching over to Nikes or Adidas, good solid track shoes that are going to keep your feet steady. Also avoid scuffy slippers. I know I've got a pair of scuffy slippers that don't have a back on them, and I'm finding I'm having a lot of trouble going up and down the stairs in them, and that is a real hazard. So I've switched now to a slipper that has a back on it. Make sure that all your clothes fit properly. Very wide pant legs or very long hems at the bottom of pants can trip you up. A sleeve, a very long sleeve, is likely to catch a pot of water or grab a doorknob when you least expect it and bring you into a position to fall. So make sure that your clothing is fitting properly. Consider using a backpack or waist pack. What you're trying to do is make sure that both hands and arms are free to give you that balance while you're walking. My mom, as she got older, switched from a purse that she held in her hand to something that went across her shoulder so that both her hands were free. And finally, if you are in the position where you have a condition or are taking medication that may in fact contribute to a fall, perhaps protective gear is good. Anything that will, those protective pads that the kids wear for skateboarding, shoulders, pads for the elbows and knees, and protecting hips and limbs. This is all very good for you, and you can get those at any sporting goods store. And finally, there are just some safety aids while you're in the home in case that you do fall or you want to make sure that people can check on you. First are those personal medical alert devices. You know, the "I've fallen and I can't get up." Those personal medical alert devices can alert help if you've fallen, and some of the really cool ones can now sense when you fall, and if you don't get up after a few minutes, then they will automatically call for help. There are now things, cameras and motion detectors that can be put in the home so that if you have a loved one who's watching out for you, they're able to tell, are you moving around properly, and have you gotten to the living room today? Perhaps you haven't, and maybe that will alert somebody that you need some help, that you have fallen. There's a whole lot of assistive technology out there now. Like I saw some advertisements just this week for lighted canes and lighted switch plates that help you to find things and have more light in the house. I just think those are great. So if you need assistive technology, there's a lot out there. And if you use the term assistive technology on the internet to search, you can find a lot of websites and mail order houses that have this kind of aid. And finally, our sponsor, Family Health Network, has this service called Connected for Life that has a function in it that helps you track medications for yourself. It also allows you to do a daily check-in and do a status update so that both you and your loved one who may be watching out for you can make sure that you're getting around in your daily routine and that you're not having trouble. So you want to consider something like that, and all of these safety aids are good to have in the home to make sure that you are getting around as you'd like to. So just in summary then, our 6 risk factors for falling are osteoporosis, medications, chronic illness, impaired vision, lack of physical activity, and environmental hazards. And truly, you don't need to tackle all 6 at once. Take a look at each of these. Once you get your checklist, you want to take a look at what's involved and say, where is the biggest risk? And at that point, go to that particular factor, get that straightened out, and then move to the next one. For more information from us, from Parent Care 101 or for Family Health Network, here's some contact information. And I'd like to just take a few minutes. Did we get any questions from the audience that we can answer in the next few minutes?
We don't have any questions at this time, Laverne, but I welcome in the next minute or two if anybody would like to send in a question via the chat feature on the web, on the webinar. Please send in your question. We'll wait for a second, and while we do, I want to thank Laverne. That was a great presentation. I really enjoyed it. There were so many tips and insights, and the thing I found most fascinating was your experience with Tai Chi. I've been carrying around a Tai Chi DVD because I travel a lot on business, and I just know I need to get into Tai Chi, so it's in my briefcase, and I have yet to actually start doing it.
Okay, get that out. Get that out, Dan.
I know my wife is encouraging me, and I have two parents, both in their 80s at this point. A mom with Alzheimer's, and my dad just had quadruple bypass surgery. So a lot of this information, my dad has fallen in the last 2 weeks, Laverne. So a lot of this information is so relevant. I really appreciate it. Let me see. I'm checking the monitor to see if we have any other questions coming in. Let me close with this, and then I'll throw it to Laverne for any parting comments. But please, if you do have questions, shoot email to Laverne. Send her an email with a question, and we'll share the answer to that question with everyone who attended the webinar today. Or you can email Lon at Family Health Network, and Lon will make sure he gets the question to Laverne, and we get you the answers you require. So please feel free to have this be an ongoing conversation and not have this be the end of the path. And check out Laverne's website at parentcare101.com, and obviously Family Health Network at familyhealthnetwork.com. There's a lot of good information in both those locations. Laverne, any parting words?
No, just want to say to people that I want to thank you again for coming, and I'm very glad that you all were able to come today. So I hope to hear from you in the future.
Hi, Laverne, it's Lon. We do have a question that was posed by Elaine. If you take a fall, should you try to get back up?
If you fall, the first thing to do is really to give yourself some time. Think about and try to move each limb. Try to move your legs slowly. Try to move your arms. Try to sit up, but very slowly. If you feel any pain at all, then you should try not to get up. And if you're home alone, then if you don't have one of those medical alert devices, you want to try to move very carefully to the telephone so that you can get some help. If you feel any pain at all, you should try to get some help to you, but don't get up right away. Make sure that you take it very slowly. One of the other things is that if you realize that you were unconscious in the fall, that you've hit your head, or that you don't remember, you get up and it's 5 minutes later, you definitely want to call for help right away, because that could be a head injury that would be very dangerous. Thanks very much for that question.
All right. Well, Laverne, thank you so much. We appreciate all the information you shared with us today. And thank you to everyone out there for attending the webinar. We're going to wrap it up now, and we appreciate your participation.
Have a good day, everybody.